Welcome back to Cruder.com. In this next video on pivot tables, we're going to take a look at some messy data and then create a pivot table from it. And then on that pivot table, we're going to learn how we can set up calculated fields. All right, so now that we have our pivot table here, let's go ahead and see if we can reconcile the pivot table to the sheet. So let's go ahead and drop the amount here and quickly notice that we're looking at the count of amount, and Excel defaulted to the count because there's those blank rows. So it says, hey, it's not a continuous column full of values, therefore let's go ahead and do count. But in this case, we want it to be sum. So let's put it to sum, hit OK. Now this is 1.67 billion. And if we come over here to our messy data, let's come back here and just highlight on column R, and we have 1.671 billion. So that's including all of these subtotals all the way down. So it's being duplicated many times. So let's pop back over here. We don't want that to happen, so we want to filter it out. Quickly, we can go ahead and grab any of the fields that are blank rows, such as this one, this trans type. So if I put that into the filters, and if I drop it down and say, hey, I don't want to see any of the blank rows, because those are the ones that I would have manually deleted. In this case, I'm just going to filter them out. And now our total has changed to 557 million. So remember that number, 557. Pop over here. Let's do the same thing that we just did. So trans type, I filtered, I said show everything here except for the blanks. Hit OK. Now let's highlight on column R. We're back to 557, 223. Perfect. So now we know that we've filtered out all of our data. Let's go ahead and take a look at how we can create a calculated field now that we know that our messy data can work with this pivot table. Let's set up a scenario here. Let's pretend that we are going ahead and we're going to sell our inventory. So we're going to look at our account name. And let's filter this down to cost of goods sold inventory. Hit OK. And then over here, so what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to pop in all of our inventory items. So now we have all of our inventory items here. Let's filter down to the top 5. So this will be a bit more condensed of a field. And so I'm going to say top 5, enter. And here we are on our top 5 products that we sell. Here is the cost to us, the cost of goods sold. What if we want to go ahead and calculate what is the average price that we sell this at? And you can't tell right here, but we have a quantity column. So let's put in a quantity on here as well. Pop that in, and we don't want the count. We want to have this as the sum. So this tells us that we've sold 1,311 over the last 10 years, and it's amounted to cost of goods sold of 472,671. Now to do this manually, we could easily just say equals this divided by the quantity, which would tell us that this is the average piece price for this AG part. We could pop this down and do the same thing for all of the other inventory items. Again, like I've said in the past, this is outside of the pivot table, so it's best if we can populate it within this pivot table. And to do that, we can utilize this fields, items, and sets button, which will get us to the calculated field. So we pop into here, Excel says, hey, I can do some calculations for you, and I can add it to the pivot table. So for this one, I want to call it my piece price. And so what the formula is, it's just what we did outside of the pivot table. So I'm going to say, I want to take my amount divided by my quantity. So if we go ahead here and find amount at the bottom, double click, or just hit insert field, and then the division sign divided by my quantity, double click again, or insert field, hit OK. Immediately, Excel will pop this in for you. And let's just verify this math. So it's going to say equals this divided by that, and copy it down, and we get the exact same numbers that Excel has calculated for us within the pivot table. Let's delete this. Now what if we want to go ahead and do another step and say, well, typically on average we go ahead and take this price that we calculated here and we multiply it by 150%. That's our markup, 150%. So to do that, we could say equals this times 1.5, so 150%, enter, and then we can drag it down. Let's go ahead and see if we can match this. And right now I'm going to actually edit this quickly. And then all we need to do is pop back into Analyze, come over here, and add another calculated field. For this calculated field, it's exactly what we did in this formula right here. First, let's go ahead and name this. So let's switch the name to markup. And then the formula, it's just what we had written here. It's the piece price times 150%. So I'm going to find my new field, which is piece price. So remember, we just created this as a calculated field, and Excel has given this to us as a field that we can use within another calculated field. So I'm going to pop this in, say times 1.5 or 150%, hit OK, and Excel comes to the same exact number that I have right here. I'm going to delete this, and I'm actually going to get rid of all of these really quick. So I'm going to go back to my calculated field, pop down on this drop down arrow, and you can see that both of my calculated fields are here. I'm going to select one and hit delete. Select the other one, hit delete. Then when I hit OK, both of them will disappear. And now I'm just left with this. So the next thing I want to show you is how we can insert a calculated item, which is a bit different than a calculated field, which is meant to go into the values field over here. Now, calculated item goes into a row label or a column label. So in this case, let's go ahead and add it to right in here within this description short. So we'll add a calculated item. Let's pretend that each item here, we had to pay some tax on it, and we want to go ahead and calculate that tax. We could create a calculated field and have it populate right next to it saying your tax rate, let's say 6 or 7 or 8% times this amount, and it would be labeled right here. But we can do the same thing by inserting a calculated item to go right beneath one of these inventory part numbers and then calculate the tax on it. So let's go ahead and do that. And the first thing we need to do is be selected on one of these items here, one of these row labels, and then we can pop into the Analyze tab on the ribbon, come over here. Now we have calculated item illuminated. So now when we open up this dialog box, we have to first set up a name. Let's call this name AG tax. So we're going to take this inventory part and then calculate the tax on it. The formula here, how this works is it's saying, how do you want this AG tax? When I go ahead and insert it as a new line, how do you want to calculate it? So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to say, hey, model it after another field. And so down below here is where we get to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to make this simple, and I'm just going to look at the description short. It's automatically selected right now because that's the field that I was selected in when I clicked into inserting a calculated item. And because we're selected here, it's given us the unique items in this field. And I'm just going to type AG to pop down to all of the AGs because it's in alphabetical order here. And I'm going to select AG inventory part. I'm just going to double click. And what I'm telling Excel right now is I'm saying, hey, model this AG tax off of AG inventory part. So make it the exact same right now, but I'm also going to apply a tax rate. So I'm going to say times 0.06 sales tax. So it's saying whatever this normally is, multiply it by 0.06, and then let's hit OK. And it's kind of a trick right now because we're actually just filtered on the top 10. And if we multiply this by 0.06, that's going to be a really small number. So it's filtered out right now. So let me clear the filter, pop back into the filter and say, I just want to look at AG. And notice that all of the AGs pop up. So we have AG inventory part and we have AG tax. So now AG tax is a part of our pivot table and our pivot table analysis. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. All of these other ones like customer, employee, and vendor will be filtered out because we are filtered currently on cost of goods sold inventory. Okay, so we have this now. All of this information, we have the quantity. It's actually taken the quantity, timesing it by 0.06, so that really doesn't make any sense. But it does make sense for the amount times 0.06. And you can even see in the formula bar up here, it's showing us what Excel is doing. It's taking AG inventory part times 0.06. I'm going to hit enter. And let's just verify this quickly. So I'm going to pop down below and say equals this times 0.06, enter, and then carry that across. Just to prove out that this is being calculated correctly, and just to give myself that sanity check that you sometimes just need.